Welcome, everybody, to the SoxProspects.com podcast, the web's #1 source for information on the Boston Red Sox from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you for listening. My name is Chris Hatfield, and I am the executive editor of Sox Prospects. And, let me check. Ready to come out of the oven for Thanksgiving dinner is our director of scouting, Ian Kundle. Ian, you've developed a nice golden brown, perfectly textured skin, cooked all the way through. You look scrumptious, my friend.
That was weird. Wow, that was not the intro I was expecting. I'm just gonna move on and just act like that didn't happen. Thank you for having me. Welcome to the off-season edition where nothing's happening. It's been a quiet few weeks in the baseball world, but we're here to fulfill all of your Red Sox prospects' needs and interests and teach about some good stuff today.
Not quite so go, but we'll take it. A serious question on the subject of Thanksgiving, and happy Thanksgiving to all of our listeners, everyone who's listening out there. Thank you for joining us over your holiday weekend. Ian, favorite Thanksgiving side? Do you have one?
Yes. Well, does cranberry sauce count as a side? Because
Sure,
I eat it like a side.
Sure.
No. The answer is butternut squash. It's the best thing ever. It's
prepared how though?
A maple syrup, pureed with like a maple syrup in it.
Oh, so you like the like puree version?
Yes.
Okay. Because I roast my butternut squash.
Yeah,
pureed. Okay, interesting.
Gets that nice orange color, and then it's just very good. I like that, and I'm a big OG Ocean Spray General jellied cranberry sauce person. Like,
okay,
I know like homemade is better, but like there's something about when it comes out of the can and it's still got those little ridges from the can in it, and then you cut right into it. Like, oh, it's great.
Like it's Jello.
Yeah.
No. So I used to be big, or not used to be. I'll still crush a can of Ocean Spray cranberry sauce can.
Yeah, I mean, like I'll literally just put it on everything on Thanksgiving.
My wife makes she makes this bourbon cranberry sauce homemade. That is just money.
Like, yeah, no, that's the thing is I like homemade cranberry sauces too. Yeah. But like there's just something special about the jellied version that is basically like Jello.
Special in its lack of specialness. Like I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Mine. Can I pick a dessert? Because I would probably go.
Well, if you keep picking a dessert is cheating. Like obviously everyone's gonna pick a dessert.
All right. Fair.
And if you say Brussels sprouts, I'm leaving. Is the only thing.
You're not a Brussels sprouts guy.
Oh no, disgusting. Worst food on earth.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh yeah, only one in my family thinks that because British people love Brussels sprouts. But
you got to roast it correctly. But yeah,
it doesn't matter. It's terrible.
Okay. I mean, bourbon pumpkin cheesecake, which I think I'm saying a little bit about myself with my two, the bourbon cranberry sauce and the bourbon pumpkin cheesecake. But we've got a recipe we got from like Smitten Kitchen that is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. One of the best things I've ever consumed. So those are a couple of my favorites. And I gotta say, like, even as a vegetarian, like people are always like, "Oh, what do you do on Thanksgiving?" Like, think about what you eat on Thanksgiving and how many of the sides are vegetarian.
So you don't stuff tofu?
Made. No, absolutely not.
I thought you just take a brick of tofu, cut it inside out, and put stuffing in it.
We actually make a butternut squash lasagna that is money.
I mean, I've had butternut squash lasagna just like normally.
Yeah, but it's like it's like layers of pumpkin and butternut squash.
Yeah. It's like you can get on point. Like you can get like butternut squash or like pumpkin like ravioli, which are stuff like filled with that.
Yes, of course, right, exactly.
It's like the same idea.
Exactly. Put it this way: we made it for my Italian grandmother, and she got seconds, and she was like 102 at the time. So it's like, okay, grandma's down with the butternut squash lasagna. We're good. Anyway, all right, well, thank you all for listening. We hope you're recovering from your tryptophan naps. And thank you for choosing to spend this holiday weekend with us. We appreciate it. If you want to continue showing us,
we hope you travel safely. Depending on
travel safely, absolutely.
Depends when it comes out. So if it comes out before Thanksgiving, you won't be in their turkey, whatever thing is called, naps.
Tryptophan.
So, thank you.
Which has actually largely been disproven. It's just people nap because they eat too much.
I was about to say it's because they eat too much.
It's because they eat too much. It's not because of tryptophan. It's because you overeat.
Yeah, no, and this Thanksgiving is going to be even better because starting at 5 a.m. there's sports on. Like, it's incredible. I can literally watch sports from 5 a.m. until whatever the Patriots game ends.
That's true. Remind me that the three lion. Oh, the three lions
That's
blew
Friday.
out.
No, they
No,
killed it
well,
wrong.
that's
Yeah.
which good.
Easy. It's coming home.
Yeah. Well, ooh. Okay.
I didn't specify where.
You didn't what?
I didn't specify which home it's coming to, but
I
the
mean,
trophy.
oh, you think the U.S. has a chance? Okay,
No,
that's
I don't think the U.S. has a chance. But I
okay.
didn't. No, I didn't say that. I said it's coming home to somewhere, which is technically true. It could go anywhere in the world. It could be home for someone. But yeah,
One of 32 places, in fact.
exactly.
True. All right. Anyway, people love the soccer talk here on soxprospects.com. But if you want to show your support, one way to get us to stop talking about soccer is to rate and review us on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. Just ignore the soccer part and rate us and review us on the baseball part. We really appreciate that. Tell a friend. Signal boost. Use your Twitter to the extent that it still exists going forward. Tell a friend. Tell someone who follows you on Twitter who you don't know. Have an argument with them about Heim Bloom or something, and then tell them to listen to the Sox Prospects podcast. And you can support us on patreon.com/Sox Prospects. Pledge a certain amount, get some great rewards. So check us out over there. And of course, you can send your emails to podcast@soxprospects.com. We want to talk about what you want to hear about. Only one email this week, Ian. So we'll do that later on, and it's on a pretty quick procedural point that we can get to pretty easily. Actually, you know what? Maybe we'll lead with it, Ian, because the email this week, I think it's from our longtime supporter Harrison, I believe. Yeah, and Harrison had a very quick Rule 5 question. So just to finish up from last week's episode, he says, "Hi, Chris and Ian. The Red Sox made their selections to the 40-man roster to protect some minor leaguers from the Rule 5 draft. I'm guessing most of us were surprised by Thaddeus Ward being passed over. What can the Red Sox do with Ward between now and the Rule 5 draft? I know he can't be added to the 40-man. Can he be traded, or is he frozen in his currently vulnerable status?" As always, thanks for your excellent website and the podcast. Thanks for the question, Harrison, because we actually tracked down this information after the last episode. Ward cannot be traded.
He's frozen.
He is frozen. The rule is between the protection deadline and the Rule 5 draft. You cannot trade a player who is Rule 5 eligible.
Yep.
You can trade a major leaguer. You can trade a minor leaguer who is not Rule 5 eligible. But you cannot trade a minor leaguer who is eligible for the Rule 5 draft.
Correct. Which makes sense because it would kind of be a loophole if you could just like have a couple weeks to like figure out who's interested and then trade them.
Is it a loophole or is it? I mean, I guess if you could trade them and then they just get protected.
Yeah, because why would a team trade for them if they can't protect them? So if like you're going to do that, they basically renders the deadline like useless.
Right. I mean, the point of the deadline really is just so that teams have time to understand and like look at the universe of available players. Really, because yeah. Can we say there's a list that gets circulated? There's a list that gets circulated to teams of players who are eligible.
Well, no, but that's obviously like everyone knows who's on the 40-man roster.
No, but I'm saying the fact that there is a list that goes to every team that says what players are eligible to be drafted.
Yeah, obviously. How else would they know? It's not like they go to like, I mean,
keep track.
Teams do this, but like, it's not like every team is tracking this on their own or going to like some website to find out. Like,
I don't know that it's necessarily obvious.
At MLB, they send it a list.
That MLB sends a list, but they do. They send a list. So, that list goes out. Teams use it to set their preference boards. I mean, it's not like there's a list of like amateur draft eligible players. Like that's just doing good scouting. Right. I mean, maybe there. I don't know. Maybe there is a central list.
I'm pretty sure there is a central list too.
Is there?
Yeah.
Especially were we on a central draft list at one point?
No, I know.
Like we were draft eligible at one point.
Yeah, but I don't think it's like that. I think it's like, I don't know. Actually, maybe there isn't. I don't know.
Like I get that, like the day one type guys and day two type guys, but like. Think back when the draft was 50 rounds long.
There probably is because like there probably isn't a list because like I remember who was it, the guy Hayden Simpson, the Cubs took in the first round, and like Jim Callis had no clue who he was at first, and like if there was a list, he would have been on it, and so I assume they would have prepped something. So
because think about it, like back when the draft was 50 rounds long, you'd get like 3 nepotism picks of like some minority owner's son or something, or like
cousin or nephew or whatever.
Yeah. So. Anyway, but thanks for the question, Harrison. We appreciate it again. Podcast at soxprospects.com. Hit us up with questions. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about the happenings of the past week, which is not a whole lot. The non-tender deadline, talk a little bit about that, and we'll resume our season in review with high minors hitters. So we'll talk about guys who started the year in Portland or Worcester. Decent amount of guys to talk about there, how it reflected on the major league roster, even like this past year, not even going forward. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Maybe mention a little bit of the fall winter stuff. And like I said, we already did the emails, so we'll bring it home. Ian, do we want to like the past week in review? I guess is where we can start. Only real big thing is the non-tender deadline. There haven't been any big signings yet. The market is moving slowly. It's probably going to move slowly. But the non-tender
Red Sox
deadline,
haven't made it. Like there have been signings, just the Red Sox really haven't got involved at all.
well,
yet.
the big ones that have happened this offseason were the reliever ones that had already happened last week.
They all re-signed, and then Tyler Anderson. Had that happened last week? Yeah. Okay. And then nothing's happened really since then.
Nothing has happened since last week because we were talking about how ridiculous that Tyler Anderson contract is and how the Dodgers keep winning. Because
I don't think it's a ridiculous contract for him. I think it's fine. Like I think the contract's fine. I just think the Dodgers are so very.
What? I think it was a little bit much for a guy with no track record, but
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, no, it's not my money. Just seems like a very Angels signing, and I don't mean that in a good way. Maybe that's just me. But anyway, yeah, I mean, not much other movement since then. I mean, Aaron Judge is met with the Giants today, which is not surprising. He's from Sacramento, right up the road.
There are a couple trades, like Kyle Farmer got traded to Minnesota.
Whatever.
To replace Gio Urshela, who got traded to LA to the Angels. But yeah, you're right. It's
been slow. It's been a slow
lot of rearranging deck chairs so far.
Well, that, and it's like, the part we're in right now is the big free agents are meeting with teams, right? Like Kodai Senga.
It's setting like the stages for what's going to happen at the winter meetings.
Right. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of movement between now and the winter meetings. The winter meetings will probably have some movement.
I think that it'll be pretty quiet till the winter meetings. Then the winter meetings will happen, and we'll maybe have like another week or two after the winter meetings of stuff, and then it's going to shut down for about 3 or 4 weeks.
Yep.
And then it'll pick back up in like mid-January.
Yep, exactly.
Which is going to be interesting because there's a lot of people to sign, and like it'll be interesting to see if teams are aggressive in trying to get stuff done before the unofficial winter shutdown over Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or if it pushes into the new year again.
We'll see. There's no lockout this year, so at least we don't have that shutting things down, although that little flurry of activity right before was pretty fun. Red Sox did non-tender 2 guys. Not necessarily the 2 guys I would have guessed.
Not as bad as I thought they were going to non-tender.
Yeah. I mean, Franchy Cordero, not terribly surprising.
No. I mean,
that would make sense.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he's brought back either.
Well, apparently Alex Spear reported that because I mentioned that just because he was non-tender doesn't mean he isn't coming back. But Spear did say that the team was negotiating with him on a potential deal, and he was not interested.
Oh, really? I could see that. He's probably tired of getting.
He's probably over the shuttle, which I get, and he probably wants to go to a team where he's going to have more of a shot.
If he goes to Korea or Japan and hits 40 home runs this year.
Jimmy Dunn was saying that in the ownership Slack. And I wholeheartedly agree. He just seems like a fit for NPB or Korea, and just go over there and mash. Because he just looks like a 4A guy at this point.
Yeah.
He goes down to Worcester.
He's slightly
and rakes.
better than a 4A guy, but like he's not good enough to be even like a bench platoon bat.
Right. I mean, there's just not a whole lot of space. I get what you're saying, but there's just not a ton of space there. Like he's a guy. He's not a 4A guy. He'll come up and have like a good few weeks and then just like crater again. So yeah, we'll see what happens with him. But Yu Chang was the other guy, which like I'm not surprised he's off the 40. Like I thought he had no chance of making it through the offseason on the 40 man, so that makes sense. To me, the biggest headline coming out of it was that Ryan Brazier. Well, put it this way. It wasn't surprising that Ryan Brazier did not get non-tendered because the way that Brian O'Halloran talked about him at the GM meetings.
They were telling us for weeks, they were telegraphing that he was going to get tendered.
There was no chance he was going to get non-tendered because he talked about him in the same breath as John Schreiber, Matt Barnes, and Tanner Houck, which just is ludicrous to me. I don't understand that at all. I mean, do you want to talk about your kind of reaction to the deadline? Because they also tendered Josh Taylor, who also is out of options and looks like he will probably be on the opening day roster, or at least he's going to get guaranteed money like he's going to be.
Yeah. And that's the thing to me that was just weird about those moves is like I'm fine if you want to really bring back Ryan Brazier or Josh Taylor, like fine. But I don't understand how that fits with what they've talked about and needing to upgrade the pitching staff. And they mentioned it again today. Alex Spear had a really good article talking about how, Chaim Bloom and I think Brian O'Halloran had quotes in it talking about how, like, they know the rotation and they know the bullpen needs to get better. They know that their upgrades have to be done, but then at the same time, it's like they haven't been linked with anyone really noteworthy for the bullpen at all, and they haven't been really linked with anyone for the rotation other than bringing back Eovaldi or bringing in Senga.
Yeah, I was going to say Singh is the one that they did get linked with,
and
but
so
so
that's the
the
one. But like he seems like he falls in the Eovaldi range. So that to me is like it would be they're not going to have both, so it'd just be like kind of replacing Eovaldi with him, which I'd be fine with. But the bullpen part is just what surprised me because if you're tendering Brazier and Taylor, to me that indicates that you think they can be on your opening day bullpen. And for what we have projected right now, that would mean like if those two are locked in, Houck, Schreiber, Barnes are for sure locked in. That's three more, so that's five guys. And then I would assume that at least one of Crawford, Winkowski, and Kelly is a lock for the bullpen, and probably two. Like that's you're running back the same bullpen as last year, basically. And it's like I don't understand how you can on the one hand talk about how you need to upgrade your pitching and get better in the bullpen, have more defined roles, things like that, and then just run back the same bullpen unless you're basically saying that we think that all the guys we had last year underperformed and will be better this year. And I don't know. With Brazier, I just don't. He's 35. He's going to make what, around $2 million, I think was what MLB trade rumors projected for him for his, I don't know if we can bring that up. Well, but something around like $2 million. And I don't see the upside. Like we know what he is by now. Like he's been, he'll have a good stretch for 2 weeks and then he's gonna have an 80 ERA for 2 months. And then he'll go back and it'll level out at about a 5 for the season. Like I don't know. I don't know how bringing him back makes you better next year. It just seems to me like, running him back is just, you're running him back, running Taylor back, and then obviously with the other guys that are definitely coming back, you're kind of locking yourself in or boxing yourself into the same bullpen. Or if you're planning on releasing these guys in the future, you're going to be paying the money to not pitch for you, which is something you could have done now. So, and not had to pay them anything. So I don't know. It's obviously this is all speculation. It's hard to say without knowing what they're going to do because they have a ton of moves still to be made. Like they don't have a shortstop. They don't really have a catcher. Assuming they're true with talking about that they want to go out and get an everyday catcher type. Even though I'd be fine with McGuire and Wong, frankly. But they have a lot of holes to fill, and like it's hard to judge their offseason now. But it's just interesting to me that they're just not being like they're talking about making all these changes, yet at the same time they're kind of filling the roster up already.
So Brazier is projected to get 2.3.
Yeah, like
I mean, here's the thing, though. Like thinking this through, is bringing him into camp for 2.3 if the CBT is not an issue.
Well, but it should be like, but I think it is an issue because like the fact that I think it was Alex Spear again had an article talking about how they're reluctant to target guys with a qualifying offer, and part of that is because they went over the CBT last year, and it's like, they went over by between something I think it's like 5 to 7 million.
They went over by a JD Martinez trade,
right? But like, if you're just throwing 2 million away on Ryan Brazier for someone you DFA in May. That's not a good use of resources, in my opinion. Like, no,
that's fair. I don't disagree.
I don't think if Brian Brazier is a free agent, I don't think there's any chance he gets $2.3 million. Like Matt Strom signed for what, $4 million last year?
Yeah, and Matt Strom's a lot better than Ryan Brazier.
Yeah, like Ryan Brazier to me is someone who would he would definitely be in like a major. I don't know if he gets a guaranteed contract for another team next year, in my opinion. Like
he probably gets an either.
He gets probably one of those like either a two-way contract or one of those like non-roster invitees where if you make the team, you get like $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Like something like that. Like I don't think he's a lock to get an MLB contract from anyone else, and that's why
it's like the Travis Shaw contract.
Yeah, exactly. Like approve it. Like show us in spring training that you weren't and I just don't get what like the upside is of bringing him back versus. And it goes back to what we discussed last week, like protecting someone like Thad Ward or like having that spot, because like they're going to have to make some DFAs when they eventually do sign or trade for guys.
Yeah, I mean, like that's a
if
key
they're
point.
if you're DFAing, like let's say like hypothetically like Ronaldo Hernandez or Connor Siebold or someone, and keeping Brazier in order to add someone else, is that a worthwhile trade-off? I'm not sure, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, so the 30-man roster, or sorry, the 40-man roster is at 38. We were talking a little bit about this.
They're going to bring in
at least five major
4 to 6 guys, like
4 to 6 major leaguers, I think is the number. And yes, they might trade guys off of it. In fact, I very well easily could see them doing so. Like Jarren Duran, you're not going to DFA, but he's also just kind of stuck in this no man's land. Is he a candidate to go to a team that like wants to give him some run on the major league roster? And
Bobby Dahlbeck, same thing.
Bobby Dahlbeck, same exact thing. I could see that happening with guys like that. But if you look at the guys, like if you presume that that Taylor and Brazier are now safe from being designated for assignment, which is a fair bet, the guys you're talking about DFAing, it's like Caleb Ort is, I think, the next guy for a DFA. Just because I think he's just fungible, optionable reliever depth, right? Which is not, it has some value. It doesn't have a ton of value.
Yeah.
But after that, you're talking guys like Darwinzon Hernandez. You're talking like Jeter Downs. You're talking Siebold, maybe, I guess. I mean, it seems a year early to DFA Siebold.
Yeah. I mean, I think a good way to think about it is just looking at our projected rosters for next year.
Yep.
There's 15 guys on the 40 we have projected for AAA, which obviously can't happen. So.
Oh, yeah. No, I guess it can't.
So, like, either.
You could, then the math there being that the most you can have in the minor leagues is 14.
14. So, like.
Because you have 26 in the majors.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's like they have, like, someone's going to have to go who's like, either some of these guys that we have projected for the minors are going to end up in the majors, which is just running back the same team.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, or they're going to have to, like, as you said, they're going to have to deal from that area or like cut guys from there because like they don't have, and that's you know, if they're projecting right now, our projected roster page has 6 acquisitions, including one of them being like a shortstop for Xander Bogaerts, and it doesn't have Brazier or Taylor included on that list. So it's like they're going to need to get it. They're going to have to get 4 spots, which is going to have to come from the minor league side probably. Or
and we're projecting too many for the major league roster on purpose.
Exactly. So, but that's like
6, 7, 8, 9.
The math doesn't add up with the number of guys.
Yeah, we have 1 extra pitcher.
Yeah.
Which likes to say that 1 extra is like Cutter Crawford actually starts, or Josh Winkowski starts in AAA.
That's another guy. That's 16 now. Like that's
too many.
The math doesn't add up with the split right now. So they're going to have to address that in some capacity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It will be interesting to follow. I mean, maybe that like Sean Murphy trade or Brian Reynolds trade.
Well, that's why it's just the balance. Like the balance is off with the roster, and the more and kind of thinking like if I hadn't really looked at it this way until now, like it makes sense to me that they didn't protect someone like Wickelman Gonzalez, because if you're already at like a 16 guys who probably and that's so 1 more down from there, and that's assuming like Kelly makes the team and Winkowski and Crawford. Like I could very easily see 2 or 3, all of them not making the major league team. Like
right.
You're pushing like 19, 20 guys. So it's like, could they really like they probably couldn't afford to carry someone like Wickelman Gonzalez who's going to be in high A to start next year.
Yeah.
Or frankly, maybe that's part of what went into Thad Ward. Thad Ward's not someone I could say who I think is going to have an impact at the major league level for the Red Sox next year, or at least they thought that. Maybe that went into their thinking is like, if you look at the pitchers they protected for next year, all of them I would project get up to the MLB at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to have to be some sort of rebalancing with the 40-man roster at some point, whether it become through trade or, you know, DFAing. But it just doesn't make, like, I don't think you can be, you know, removing Brazier and Taylor later dates, because those spots need to go to MLB guys. You can't be, you're going to have to be trading out minor league guys who protect it, start in the minors for major leaguers, not the other way around. So it seems to me like they're pretty much locked in.
Right. And then like Darwinzon, like, I know it's the Venezuelan Winter League, but in 6 innings, he hasn't given up a run yet. He's got 10 strikeouts to 3 walks.
Like, well, and the thing is, they just have a real lack of left-handed relievers, both on the major league roster and the minors, which make him more valuable. Like makes
him more valuable, and he's got upside.
Yeah.
Like he never really has had a true run in the bullpen in AAA
In shape.
in shape
Been a major
to
issue.
to like get it done and
In shape
hopefully
and healthy, and yeah.
yeah. So maybe, the end of last year getting sent down like shocks him back into, realizing what's up.
But I
But
mean, it just
but
it's
he's like the third guy to get DFA'd off the roster right now.
which is why there's
You
just
know?
something, yeah, something has to be done to kind of like get this back more in line and more in
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah, it does have to get balanced. We'll see how that plays out, but that's going to be a storyline to watch that is not obvious. The kind of storyline you're not going to get unless you listen to the Sox Prospects
Yeah.
podcast.
Well, and I think just two other general things I'd like to talk about is number one, I think that criticizing like the Red Sox for not doing anything yet, I think really misses the mark. No one's done
No
anything.
one has done anything yet.
Like,
Yeah,
I
it
understand
kills
that
me.
people want the Red Sox to, like think they should be like setting the market or like, being aggressive, but
They
it
still
just seems
can.
like no one is like,
Well, but they
and
still can. You can
yeah,
set the market at the winter meetings.
exactly. Like if nothing gets done till the winter meetings, you still can be that team. So I think we need to
Yeah.
wait on that. And I think the
Yes.
second thing is, um, that I don't understand how last season everyone was complaining that the Red Sox were the interest kings. And now this season, when it's not leaking who they're interested in for the most part,
Yeah.
it's everyone's all up in arms. They're like, why aren't they in on this guy? Why aren't they in on this guy? Why aren't they in on this guy? It's like last season, everyone was like, a lot of people, especially on Twitter, were just all over Bloom for, well, he's interested in him, but we know he's not going to sign him. And this season, nothing's coming out, and it's like a problem. It's like, what do you want? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
to me, the reason to hear my thought is that the reason nothing has happened yet is that the first domino is Xander Bogaerts because they are banking on him going out, seeing that his market is nowhere near what he is looking for. Because I'm sure he is asking for over 200 million.
yeah, 100%.
He has every right to ask for that. I don't think that that is outrageous. I
Yeah,
also think that no one is going to give him that because
yeah.
no team out there is going to think that Xander Bogaerts is going to be a shortstop for the entire length of the contract he's about to sign.
Yeah. Well, I think that they're waiting. They're trying. I mean, it seems like I think Sean Heyman or something mentioned today that the Devers side, there's optimism that maybe they can
They
figure
can get
something
something
out
done.
because it's getting closer. Like the Red Sox offered, I think he said 220 million, but
They basically,
Devers wants closer to 300.
it sounds like they offered him the Austin Riley
Yeah,
contract.
and Devers wants closer to 300, which well within his right.
Sure.
So I do wonder. I kind of agree that it might be that they're just waiting to see how much of their budget is taken up by the shortstop, probably Bogarts,
And the
but
third
whoever it
base.
ends up,
And
and
the third
Devers at
baseman.
third base,
Yep.
and that will impact. If we sign these guys combined for, let's just hypothetically say like 60 million AAV, that gives us X dollars to spend on these positions. If we can somehow get them for 55, it's we can bump up
Do
this
more.
position to another, we can go up from, player X to Jose Abreu at first base / DH, or, Senga to like, not Carlos Rodon, because they're not, it doesn't seem like they're in one of the top pitchers, but like Chris Bassett or something.
Rodon's
Like,
the guy I couldn't think of on my radio hit this morning. Damn it.
but yeah, like something like I do wonder if their budget is all dependent on what happens with Devers and shortstop,
Right.
and then
Right.
it will kind of flow from there.
Yeah.
Once they set that
Like,
number.
do you need to trade for the outfielder like we talked about? And who's
Right.
the outfielder you trade for? Do you trade for Reynolds or do you trade for one of the Diamondbacks really cost controlled guys like
Exactly.
an Alex or a Corbin Carroll?
Well, especially because like I guess that is one of the things that did happen. The Diamondbacks acquired another outfielder.
Right, and Kyle Lewis,
Lewis.
which screams of we're going to deal at least one of the guys we currently have.
And it's not going to be Varsho or Carroll, so it's going to be Alec Thomas or Jake McCarthy, it seems.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And why do you say, just to explain to everyone and maybe me, why do you say that Carroll and Varsho are not going to be the guys getting moved?
Because Carroll is like the best prospect in baseball, and it's just a monster. I mean, we came up last year and had like a 900 OPS and whatever. And
right.
Yeah, I mean, and then Varsho is too valuable. He's one of the best defenders in the league. And
crazy given that he came up as a freaking catcher,
power, speed, like
it
just doesn't make sense to deal a guy like that.
Nope.
Whereas,
yeah, no,
like,
it's interesting.
Thomas is like kind of he's very good, but it seems like he's more like a tweener type. Like he's not a power guy. He's a solid average, but not great. Solid OBP, not like insane OBP guy. Good defender, but not like necessarily a stud center fielder. Like he kind of gets caught in that, like, I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, he's obviously still a very good prospect. But he's doesn't have the upside, I would say, of Varsho, the two-way upside of Varsho and what's his name?
Corbin Carroll.
Corbin Carroll, and then McCarthy. McCarthy's weird because if you look at his track,
So let me just
good.
jump in real
Yeah, go
quick.
ahead.
In Arizona last year, in 113 games, Thomas hit 231, 275, 344.
And obviously, I think he's a better player than that.
He's better than that. I mean, in
Yeah.
AAA in Reno, which, like, granted, it's the Pacific Coast.
It's Reno. Reno is one of the most hitter-friendly parks in
Yeah.
baseball.
322, 397, 539.
Yeah.
But like 4 home runs and I guess he was only there for 27 games last year.
Yeah. No, Alex Thomas is like, I mean, if you look at the Fangraphs tools, they have like 55 hit, 55 power, 60 speed, potentially 60 defense, which might be a little high, but yeah, like he's like when I say tweener, I don't mean this in a bad way. I mean it in like he's going to have a bunch of 50 to 55 tools, but there might not be like 60s and 70s like you get with Carroll or Varsho, frankly. But like Jake McCarthy is weird because if you look at his like StatCast data, the only red on this entire page is sprint speed. It's like 20th percentile eggs. Yeah. No. Jake McCarthy.
Okay. Yeah.
20th percentile exit velocity, 42nd max, 16% hard hit, like whiff percent 31st, like outfield jump 15th, arm strength 29th. Like he has a lot of blue on there. So it's like
middling to blue.
Yeah, because if you look, like, for example, last season, his XBA was 249. His expected slugging was 357, and he hit 283 with a 427 slugging. So it's saying he, like, severely outperformed his, like, batted ball data. So I just think that it makes more sense to deal those guys versus someone like Carroll, who obviously Carroll's not getting traded, and then Varsho, who, if you look at his StatCast page, and I also don't think, it doesn't seem like he might not even catch this year. But yeah, if you look at like Varsho's stuff, like 99th percentile outs above average, 97th percentile jump, 66th percentile exit, 70th percentile barrel rate, 69 sprint speed. Like I know his numbers overall, like his expected BA his average, like it's 235, 302, 443. Like in the new baseball, that with 27 home runs and 16 steals, that's very good.
Like, he was a 109 OPS plus. Like
yeah. But with power and speed, 27 home runs, 16 steals, like, yeah, you don't trade someone like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That outfield spot just seems like such an obvious place to make a trade.
Yeah. But the thing is,
like we've talked about it.
If we know, if the Red Sox know those guys are available, every other team does, and every other team will be interested. Like,
yep.
So, but yeah. But as you said, the point I agreed that, like, if you're going to go, like, all those guys are cost controlled more so than Reynolds, who I think is like, he signed that extension at like $6 million, I want to say, or 6.5 last year. It was like 2 years, 12 million or 13 million. So yeah, that's obviously that $5-6 million difference can matter depending on what happens with Bogarts and Devers if they extend them or re-sign them.
Varsho was basically a catcher his entire time in the minors until he came up, more or less, which is just bonkers to me. That he's that good at he's turned into a premier defender. Well, he spent more time in right than center last year,
or right field. Sorry, but yeah, he's like a Gold Glove defender.
Yeah, which is just bonkers to me. Like even in 2021, he played 41 games at catcher and 49 in the outfield.
Yeah,
like that's so weird to me. Anyway, whatever. We're off track. All right, shall we move on to season in review? Actually, do you want to do really quick? We haven't really updated fall winter.
Sure, go ahead.
I guess we did kind of like postmortem on the Arizona Fall League, more or less. I guess the Arizona Fall League to me was like everyone went there and more or less did what they were supposed to do, or we thought they would do.
Yeah, like York hit well.
Scott hit very well. Both of them made the AFL All-Star team. Or no, they both made the Fall Stars game. Steven Scott was on MLB Pipeline's like AFL All-Stars.
Yeah.
At catcher. Nico Cavadas had a high OBP and a decent slugging, but did not hit for a ton of average, which sounds about right. William Abreu was overmatched, which was not great, but not terribly unexpected. Maybe not a 479 OPS, but again, all these things, like we're talking a 50 at bat sample. So I'm not super worried about it. On the mound, Aaron Perry was not ready for that level. He was just there to get innings. He got 8 more innings. Great. Thaddeus Ward, 12 innings pitched because he got hurt and missed 3 weeks with a strained oblique. Numbers were pretty good. too many walks, 6 walks in 12 and 2/3 innings, but more strikeouts than innings pitched, which is always good. Jacob Webb had 3 saves in 10 innings. He struck out 12 and walked 5. It was a Jacob Webb type line. Ryan Zefferjon went and looked pretty good, all things considered. Again, 8 walks in 15 innings, but 18 strikeouts in 15 innings.
Yeah. I like
know,
Ryan Zefferjon.
He's interesting again.
We updated his report after Greenville, and he's someone who would not surprise me at all if he pitched in the big leagues at some point.
Yeah. The reinvention as a bullpen
he's
guy.
going to be someone who ends up on the Rays in their bullpen in like 4 years, and we're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
Or maybe the Orioles. I feel like the Orioles have a bunch of former Red Sox.
But yeah, like what I was trying to see was I was going to look up because I thought Zefferjon's numbers were skewed by like one horrendous outing, but I
think they're one or two. I think both him and I think Webb may have had like one bad outing. Otherwise, his numbers would have looked a lot better.
I just couldn't find the game by game.
I don't think they don't have game logs.
Yeah.
For the AFL, they might have them on BREF, but
it's not on BREF. That's where I looked.
Okay, yeah, they don't have them on their MLB.com page anymore either. So
yeah,
in the Dominican Winter League, the big news, like I think we talked about last episode, Tristan Casas is done for the winter. He only played in 3 games. And Manuel Valdez is the only other hitter down there. He's been kind of in part-time duty, but he has gotten 53 at bats. He's been okay, 208 average, 259 on base, 321 slugging. So not great, but again, in kind of something of a part-time role. Franklin Herman has been pretty good out of the bullpen. 10 innings, 13 strikeouts, 4 Ks, ERA below 2. Victor Santos, interesting. 10 innings, has not given up an earned run yet. Whip of 1, 12 Ks to 4 walks in 10 innings. He's been pretty good. He's missed the last 10 days because he got the flu. But I guess he was available tonight out of the bullpen for Escogido. And then Chase Shugart made 3 or 4 appearances for Las Estrellas Orientales. Was not good. 16.2 ERA, whip above 2, and actually got released when Las Estrellas added Luis Camposano to the roster. So he did not finish the year. In Venezuela, like I mentioned, Darwinzon Hernandez has been pretty dang good. That's really the big development down there. Otherwise, not a whole lot else happening. Odair Mosqueda, who re-signed as a minor league free agent, has 1 inning. Brian Bonesi has 2 at-bats. Puerto Rico is really where most of the action has been, particularly in Caguas, where they have Christian Koss, Matthew Lugo, and Cedon Rafaela all playing every day. Rafael has been the best of the 3. He's hitting 267, 333 on base, 333 slugging. He's been okay. He started late because he was with Team Netherlands for their kind of WBC early camp. Koss has been splitting his time between shortstop, third base, and left field. 225 average, a slugging below 300. He's been Matthew Lugo has really struggled. He's been playing third base. He's hitting 195. His on base is 327, but that's because he's been hit by like 4 pitches. So it's kind of artificially inflated. He basically had a stretch of like 2 or 3 games where he was really hot, and otherwise he has really struggled. He's hitting last for them. But that said, it's the first time in 3 attempts that he's actually been healthy for the Puerto Rican Winter League, so that's good. Jeter Downs has been playing for Mayagüez. He joined that team late, but he gets to play with his brother Jerry. However, he is hitting 095. Does not have an extra base hit in 21 at bats, on base of 286, but he is really struggling. And then on the mound, they've got a couple of relievers down there, and Henry Nunez and Nate Tellier, who are kind of struggling, and Juan Montero is a backup catcher in Ponce. And the last one in Colombia, Ronaldo Hernandez is down there. He is raking in 29 at bats, 345 average, 441 on base, 621 slugging. He only has 1 home run. I think he's got like 4 or 5 doubles. So he's hitting really well. But again, in Colombia is not one of the premier winter leagues. So moving on then to our season in review segment, we're going to do this like we did the pitchers. We're going to start in the high minors with all the hitters, and then we're going to move down to the minor leagues. The low minors. We're staying in the minor leagues. That's the point of the podcast, believe it or not. If you've been with us for any length of time, you know that. And I guess, Ian, for me, with the hitters starting in the high minors, to me, the biggest things were sort of the effect that those players did or didn't have on the major league roster. To me, the player who I think we most thought might have an impact on the major league roster from the minors was Jarren Duran. Really did sort of, I mean, I don't know if flopped is too strong, but he just does not look like a player right now that is a major league regular. Um, he certainly has performed in AAA, but when given the opportunity in the majors for an extended period, he just didn't take the job and run with it, I guess is how I would put it. And I don't know if you've got further thoughts on Durant from there, but whereas in the outfield, in the converse, a player that we weren't necessarily thinking would impact the major league roster, the Red Sox found in a minor league free agent of Rob Refsnyder, a legit fourth outfielder, it looks like. So I think the dichotomy there is quite interesting as far as how the major league outfield was affected by AAA.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Obviously, Duran has just shown that he just has real issues with fastballs up and off speed pitches down. And I mean, you just look at, last year in the majors, he had a 109 batting average, 174 slug. He was 5 for 46 against like change ups or splitters, like pitches like that. And then, yeah, fastballs up, same thing. It's just, real struggles with that. And it's just carryover what we saw last year. And, he's got that power speed combo teams look for. He's got outfield speed, probably a better fit in the corner than center field. But I mean, if you look, like, his jumps were okay. Like, they weren't great, but they were like average, slightly above average. He's got a decent arm. Like, he's got tools, and that's why he's going to keep getting a shot. But yeah, he didn't establish himself as a regular when given, almost over 200 at bats or 200 plate appearances. And just a lot of the same questions remain. So I think it's almost like the status quo with him. Like, it's just, we're still at that same point where, is he a regular? Is he a bench outfielder? Is he not even that? Like, what is he at this point? And it's the clock's ticking on where the Red Sox, they have to make that determination, because
Right.
I think they were banking on him developing into an everyday guy. And that just doesn't seem like someone who is going to be an everyday guy who takes, that leadoff position, which they probably hoped.
And I want them to get off the center field thing. Like, they are just steadfastly sticking to him as a center fielder. And I think, look, like, it's like moving Benintendi to left. Like, I don't see what the difference is. I mean, look, I think he also had some major growing pains. The one image that's going to last in everyone's mind from Duran this past season was that ball that landed over his head. Right? I mean, I don't think that that's fair necessarily, but it was the middle of a pretty bad stretch for him of optically bad plays like that, or things that happened.
Well, and I think the thing that's interesting is when you look, like, his jumps got a little better because he got better reaction, and he still always had the speed to close ground. The problem is, it's just roots are so inefficient that,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you're that fast, but if you're not taking efficient routes, it's not going to matter. Like, a guy like Jackie Bradley is taking extremely
Exactly.
efficient routes, significantly less athletic, less speed. Maybe not less athletic, but he's not as fast as Duran is. And he can cover way more ground just because, he takes a good route to the ball. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's just, you know, I don't think necessarily the defense, though, is like the thing holding him back right now,
No.
as much so as it's the offense. Like,
Yep. You could find a
the
spot for his defense if he
the
could hit.
defense, like, he's passable in center field. It's not going to be great. It's like a 45 to me, maybe a 40, but, like, you can fake it if he's hitting well enough. The problem is, he's just not hitting well enough to warrant, being played with those type of defensive skills. Like, you either have to do one of them great. You either have to be like you can't be like an average defender and or a fringy defender and a well below average hitter. Like, if he was hitting well enough, they'd find a position, or on the flip side, if his defense was good enough, like you saw
He'd
last
get more
year,
run.
like, you can play a guy like that through struggles because of their defense. And he's kind of
Right.
caught in that no man's land right now between the two, with not having enough bat and not having enough defense to be an everyday guy, or even, frankly, like, you can debate about if that's worth a bench spot even right now.
Whereas Refsnyder, the minor league numbers show that he's not just a random guy. Like, I think there's a reason they went out and he's making 1.2 next year. The numbers show that he arguably was, for the time he was in AAA, the best hitter they had in the minor leagues last year.
Yeah, he was just crushing the ball. Like max exit velo was super high, making a ton of hard contact
Not
consistently.
chasing.
Doesn't chase, doesn't miss in the zone. And I think, what we saw is when it carried over to the majors is, for the year 307, 384, 497, and 177 PAs. I don't think he's a full-time guy,
No.
but in like a part-time, in like a platoonish role, hitting mainly lefties, like he can hit fastballs, gets breaking balls, struggles with changeups or, that type of pitch. Really good arm strength, so plenty for right field. Like he has the perfect profile for a bench outfielder or a platoon outfielder.
Yeah.
And I think, finding him and, getting him signed and getting him in the system that's a pretty good, outcome. If you're paying, a bench guy like him $1 million or $1.2 million a year, that's a really nice use of resources right there.
Yeah.
Because his production is going to vastly outweigh that salary.
Yes. Converse to the discussion we were having earlier. Meanwhile, on the dirt, a couple of guys that, again, kind of comparing and contrasting is the catching situation seemed to solidify a little bit more, especially at the end of the year. Whereas, in the infield, although I guess you've got Tristan Casas and you've got Jeter Downs, who Casas had the long-term injury that kept him out for a couple months, which was a problem. Delayed his major league debut. The knee injury this offseason also not great. Delay, keeping him from getting some at-bats in the Dominican. Connor Wong came up and showed he's at the very least a major league third catcher on the 40-man roster, if not a platoon guy right now. And then Jeter Downs just continues to underwhelm. I don't know any other way to put it. Just really struggled. The kind of batted ball numbers we have don't look great. That we've seen out of him. And he just looks like a fringy major league guy at this point, unless something drastic changes. And that kind of tracks with what we saw coming out. I mean, I remember coming out of spring training, he was one of the guys who, did not look great in camp when we were there. And the season kind of bared that out to some large degree. How those three play out. And I mean, maybe we should mention Ronaldo Hernandez in that group as a catcher who, I think the fact that he is apparently going to get a third option or a fourth option, is huge. Because if he didn't, what do you do with him? I mean, he might be, a DFA guy if he didn't have another
Trade
option.
him to a team that was willing to carry him on the majors, probably.
I guess just for whatever. Or for cash almost even. I don't know. I mean, he looks like he might hit, but I don't know as far as can he catch.
The thing is,
but it's might hit. It's not even definitely.
Well, but it's also him hitting is like he's gonna chase a ton. Like for a point of reference, like 30-ish% chase rate. You want to see like below that. When you get up in the 40s, that's like red flag territory, and he's in the 40s. Like there's only a handful of guys in the system in the 40s. Like Roberto Jimenez is another one.
Which we'll talk about him next episode.
We'll talk about one of the other guys in a little bit who is up there, who's very highly ranked in Sinal Rafaela. Like that's not the list you want to be on, and that's what he is. Like it bears out. Like he doesn't walk, he doesn't put together quality at bats, but when he makes contact, he hits the ball really hard. And the bar for catcher though is so low that like if he can just become like a fringy defender, he's probably a big leaguer. It's the same thing with Wong. Like Wong doesn't really have to hit, especially with his defensive profile. Like when he got up to the big leagues, his defense, like he was 89th percentile for pop time, 88th percentile for sprint speed. Like he's got a lot of like good metrics that make you think, his average was like 192 on pops, which is really good.
Mm-hmm.
His framing, like he's frames certain parts of the zone really well.
To the extent that's going to remain a thing.
Yeah, he's good framing up. Like he struggles down, which was interesting. But yeah, like
he can field the position.
Yeah, that's as Hernandez. We're not sure about that. And that's kind of having that extra option buys them time to figure that out more this year, where he'll likely be the everyday guy in AAA, assuming Wong makes the big league team, or if he doesn't, they'll split time again.
Yeah, I would like to see them almost get Hernandez more time at catcher than Wong, even if they share the roster, because there was a lot of time. I mean, they were basically, when they were both there, alternating days behind the plate. But Hernandez just felt more like the starting DH than Wong did. I don't know if that makes sense. Like if they had 6 games, Wong caught 3, Hernandez caught 2 or 3, and if there was a third catcher healthy who wasn't like Davy Grion or Ronaldo, or what's his name, Roldani Baldwin, like it when like Cottom was on the roster, he may have caught 1, right? And so I don't know. It's yeah. I think they need to figure out this year quickly what Ronaldo Hernandez is, where they're kind of stuck holding the bag with him. But that group again, and then Casas. I mean, for me, we were talking about this a little bit before the show, but like Casas for me, yeah, I've got him penciled in as the opening everyday first baseman. But like, if he's struggling in camp, and I don't mean like batting average is low because he's hitting the ball on the screws and it's getting caught. I mean, like, if he looks, there's a chance he starts in AAA still. I don't think he will. I think I think 95% chance he starts in the majors, but like, I don't think it's 100% that he starts in the majors, particularly given the at-bats he missed this past year and missed this winter. But yeah, I mean, Casas was fine, especially when he came back from injury. Before he got hurt in the first month and a half, he was good. He came back, he looked better. In the major leagues, he looked like he could stick. Certainly better defensively than anything they played at first base the past couple of years. He bore out being a top 2 prospect in the system to me. Whereas Downs, just I don't know what do you do with Downs at this point, Ian.
He's on the DFA line for me.
Yeah, he's close. He's close.
He just I don't know what it is,
and he gets claimed because he's got options
probably,
left.
Yeah,
he's got options left.
he
If you're a
de- he
team that's
definitely
not
gets claimed.
competing,
Like it's hard because
what trade value does he
just
have?
goes through stretches where like he really struggles with velocity, struggles with pitch recognition and off speed, misses a ton in the zone. That was something that really stood out when I saw him. Was like there'd be pitches like right down the pipe and he's just swinging through them. And it seemed like a timing thing to me.
Yeah.
But he doesn't chase that much, which is like good. And
right.
It just, he can hit the ball really hard when he makes contact, but I'm not sure what he is. He's probably an organization, more like an org guy or like an up and down guy. He does have pretty significant platoon splits. He hits much better against left-handed pitching. So maybe that's what he develops into, is like he just sees lefties better than righties and he develops into a platoon guy. But he's another one where like, I don't, and this is something like that kind of going back to what we were talking earlier about the imbalance on the roster. There's a lot of guys on the 40-man roster, not a lot, but there's a few guys on the 40-man roster who I think like have value, but I'm not sure that they're people that the Red Sox would want like on their major league staff or major league team.
I was just looking at this myself as we were talking about it, and like on our projected roster for next year for AAA, you've got Valdez, Duran, Ronaldo Hernandez, maybe Wilyer Abreu doesn't really quite count for this, but like Jeter, Downs, where all of those guys are, what is this guy guys?
Yeah. It's more so with the position players. With the pitchers, it's easier to see like roles.
Sure.
The position players on the 40-man, not in the majors, like I'm not sure any of them other than like Duran are major league depth for next year. Or like guys you could, like if someone got hurt, you would be comfortable throwing out for an extended period of time.
Yeah, like Downs, I think could probably field the position.
No, he can field the position and hit lefties, but like we saw when he was in the majors, like there's real limitations with him at the plate. There's a lot of holes in his swing. Like he's going to get exposed pretty quickly. But yeah, like some of those guys can like play defense or something like that, but it's just like the drop off would be pretty substantial, and that's why like this is a big year for Downs. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't make it through the offseason on the 40-man, but if he does, like that's a tenuous position. He's going to have to prove that, he warrants that spot by his play early in the season.
For sure.
Whereas, as you said, like Casas final numbers, I know you were surprised by this, were actually really good in the minors.
Yeah.
It was partially because when he came back from his ankle injury, he just rakes in AAA.
Yep.
Got up to the big leagues, like the average was low, whatever. Like the OBP slugging, all the advanced stuff is good. Like he's going to be very good. It's just a question of when. And I think for the Red Sox sake, it would be better if it was to start this season.
Well, I mean, I think he gets the run, and I think they're going to run him out there for a while, even if he's struggling, just because.
100%. You have to.
There's too much potential there to cut it short. I mean, look, he's at least going to get the run that Jarren Duran got.
Yeah, like he should get
probably and certainly more.
But yeah, but like he's got the
Certainly
approach.
more.
Like he's got the approach, and if you look like his advanced numbers, the batted ball data is insane. Like
Yeah, he can hit. Like he's not just a guy that comes up and is going to hit for power.
like
Like there's
he
a hit
does
tool there.
his like it's it's at slightly above average to average chase. The end zone contact is average-ish. Like, but he crushes fastballs, just like demolishes them. Hits the ball hard a ton. His max exit velos are exactly what you want to see from guys. Like there's just a lot to like there. They're among the best in the system for his hard hit and max exit velos. Like there's a lot to like there. And like he's someone I'm pretty confident that I think he can at least the very least be like guy next year comes up and hits like, 230. And if he hits 230, 350, like 480 next year, that's fine. Like he might be a guy who takes a couple years to get a high average, but I'm pretty confident the OBP and power will be there.
Looking at the next level down, Ian, I mean, we noted to start last year that double A lineup was not necessarily stellar, to phrase it one way, I guess. And really coming out of that, I mean, looking at the guys they had there to start last year, David Hamilton and Christian Koss are really the only two that strike me as having any sort of potential major league cachet. They're the only guys we have moving up to AAA who, I mean, like Pedro Castellanos got there pretty quick last year, but he's a minor league free agent. Ooh, sorry, I just got distracted by breaking news, Ian.
Yeah, the Renfroe trade.
The Los Angeles Angels have acquired outfielder Hunter Renfroe for right-handers Jansen Junk and Elvis Peguero and minor league pitcher Adam Seminaris.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I saw that. I mean, just to change the subject for a second, poor Hunter Renfroe, 3 trades in a DFA in the last 4 years, but it also shows kind of like what we've talked about where
he's fungible.
Those corner power bats, they just with low average, like lower OBP, they're just not
Mad
that
defense.
highly sought after. Like,
yeah. Well, they're sought after. They're just fungible.
Yeah, they're sought after, but no one wants to pay them. Basically, that's what it is. It's like
fungible.
You know what he is? He's the type of guy that if he's on like the first 3 years of his contract and his like ARB 1 year, he's a very like useful player. As soon as it gets to like
ARB 2,
ARB 3, it's like, do we really want to pay this guy $8 million to $12 million a year? Like, probably not, because they're the guys that the arbitration system rewards because they put up good counting numbers. Like they're accumulators. Like they put high home runs, high RBIs. Like, and yeah, that's why he just keeps consistently getting traded for. I mean, the guys here. I think Junk pitched in the big leagues this year.
Both Junk and Peguero did. I think.
Like, I mean, just going off Fangraph's most recent Angels list. Let's see what these guys are. I'm actually curious.
I mean, he got traded for Junk.
Yeah,
sorry,
literally.
Sorry.
Well,
but I mean, Hunter Renfroe is going to come in. He's going to hit 250 to 260 with
I was going to say 230 to 260.
I mean, last year he hit 255. The year before he hit 259. So that's where I'm getting. And with a 315 on base and a 500 slugging.
All right. The year before that he was 156. The year before that he was 216.
Yeah. But I mean, at this point, I think he's kind of settling in as that. I mean, the weird thing is that his OPS plus went up 12 points because major league hitters got worse last year.
So Jansen Junk is 9th, according to Fangraphs, in the Angels system, as I think these were their end of season rankings. He's graded like a 40 plus.
Okay. So that's like Winkowski-ish?
No, it's worse than that. Winkowski's a 45. It's like,
oh, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, no, you're right. So that's like Seabold-ish.
It's like an up and down, like
that's Seabold.
Yeah, it's like it's like it's in between. Like it's not an emergency up and down like pitcher. It's better than that, but it's not. It's like a up and down pitcher basically.
Yeah.
Who was the other names?
Peguero.
Okay, I found Seminaris. Seminaris is 25th, middle reliever, 40, like bog standard middle relief, like up and down guy. He's a lefty, so that gives him a better chance. And Peguero, same thing, single inning relief pitcher, 36, 35 plus. I think he actually pitched in the big league. All these guys like were close to big league ready.
Yeah. Well, this is that Angels draft strategy of just load up on pitchers.
Peguero came from the Yankees, actually.
Okay.
So. But the other two were
depth.
The other two were drafted. But yeah, they basically traded 3 big league ready arms for him. But none of those. There's no ceiling really with these guys. It seems Maybe it seems Junk is the best of the grouping, or potentially the best. But yeah, I mean, that shows you. I think that's a good summation of what Hunter Renfro's value was like. And frankly, I mean, that's a good deal for the Angels. The Angels are clearly they're going for it. They have to. And in Otani's last year, and with him or Urshela, like they're going out and getting MLB guys. So it'll be interesting to see what the next move to drop from this is. But I think the one Red Sox takeaway from this is Milwaukee might be open for business. There have been rumors
Pitching.
that some of their starters might be on the block or something. So it'll be interesting, or maybe some of the relievers. They've got some interesting bullpen arms there. So it'll be interesting to see if things kind of escalate with them, or if this is just kind of like a short, as you said, you can find someone who can do the same job who makes, $2 million or $3 million.
Well, because they've got new guys in charge there too, because Stearns is gone, right?
I think he's still there, but he's not the GM anymore. So
he like stepped back into like a consulting role or something.
Yeah, it's weird. But so anyway, not to distract, but that was just an interesting trade. I saw that too. I was waiting if you were going to bring it up. But back to Double A.
So back to Double A.
Well, but the thing is, even where you said Koss, like I think Koss gets to the big leagues, but even he wasn't protected on the 40 this year.
No, he was never really in danger of it. Granted, Hamilton wasn't. It was a surprise. So
but Hamilton makes sense when you think about it. But Koss,
well, Hamilton's a rule change is speed going to be hugely valuable.
Yeah,
because he can also he's speedy, but he steals bases. Duran never stole bases in the minors like Hamilton does.
Hamilton is great. His good base running instincts, and he's very fast. It's a good combo. And as we said,
Duran does not have those. That's another thing with Duran. He doesn't have base stealing instincts, and he's a plus runner.
Yeah, but I think Hamilton's definitely faster than Duran too. But I think it's something we talked about in the last episode, where it's like if Terrence Gore is on a major league roster in 2022, which he was for the majority of the year, a guy like David Hamilton probably can find a spot. So I kind of get that one more. Koss is just he's another guy who doesn't do anything great, but he's okay at a bunch of things. It's a bunch of 40s and 45s, and the sum of all parts, because he can field shortstop, makes him a semi-useful player. Do I ever think he gets up to the big leagues with the Red Sox and holds down a role for any significant amount of time? Probably not. But the fact that he's the second best, or had one of the better years of the guys who started the season in Portland, is kind of I think a reflection of how much those guys kind of weeded themselves out, frankly. The Brandon Howletts, Cameron Cannon, those guys, Cole Cottom, all those guys kind of did what we expected to happen, which was struggle when they get to the Double A, and kind of just that's they're very unlikely to make an impact with the Red Sox in any capacity at the major league level.
Well, when you look at the Sea Dogs that we project to move up to AAA next year, it's Hamilton, Koss, Wilyer Abreu, who was acquired at the trade deadline, and Ceddanne Rafaela, who started the year in Greenville. That says it all right there. None of them are moving up. Which it is what it is. That happens. It's a bubble that they had, and the bubble popped. Rafaela, I think, on the other hand, is kind of, he's our player of the year. He was arguably the breakout player of the year in the system. It was between him and Miguel Blaze. I know we differed on that, and I think either argument is fine.
Well, no, my argument's right, but anyway.
Of course, Ian. But yeah, Rafaela, putting himself on the map as a top 100-ish type guy. Certainly a major league level defender.
Yeah, he's an incredible defender.
But will play in the major leagues.
Yeah. He'll play in the major leagues for a long time. It's just a question of, is he a backup or an everyday?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Backup a platoon guy or everyday guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is he? It's
well, and I think the thing that's interesting is, when you look at how his season, his season numbers, the counting stats, when you compare those from when he moved up, it seems like that he was better, I think. Almost in not better, but more impressive. We went up from Greenville to Portland, and I wouldn't say more impressive. He held his own, but he had more walks. He had, I think the walk rate was up, strikeout rate was down, things like that. But, when you look a little beneath the surface, there's definitely still some issues here. And it's kind of what we talked about earlier. It's the chase rate. It's so high. It's in the Red Sox system of guys with more than 50 plate appearances. First is Northcutt, who's not here anymore. Second is Gilberto. Third is Rafaela in Double A.
just the double A version. The high A version was a little lower, but like that's a big red flag.
And
And
he's acknowledged that it's a problem. He's like, I see a pitch and I know I can hit it and I want to hit it, and I have to learn that the fact that I can make contact with it is not sufficient.
well, and that's the thing, is that is what brings down a lot of his other metrics, and especially when it comes to quality of contact, is that because he can make contact on these pitches that he shouldn't be swinging at. And the result is he hits like a weird ground ball that's very, poorly hit, or like an infield pop up, like things like that. And, you know, it's almost better in those situations. Like I'd rather frankly have him swing and miss at that pitch than make contact on it.
Right.
Like,
right.
because if you're chasing out of the zone on a pitch like that and you swing and miss, and, as long as it's not with 2 strikes, there's another strike to go. But if you're making contact on it, you're getting yourself out, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, whatever it is. And so it's just with him, it's just going to come down to he's got to figure out his approach and improve those swing decisions. And if he does, like, obviously he's a supremely talented player. He's taken significant strides each year he's been in the organization. And would it surprise me if he came in next year with an improved approach and really cut that down? No. Like, he seems like the kind of guy who has the acumen who could do that. But at the same time, like, would it surprise me if he ended up being a guy who got up to the big leagues but just struggled to like hold down an everyday role for a significant amount of time because of that? Yeah, I could believe that too. And so yeah, it's really going to come down to what he does at the plate, determining that future value, because the defense and speed are there. It's just, and the arm, it's just, is the hit going to be a 40 or is it going to be a 55? Like, and you could make a case for anything in that range. I think it's just there's just a wide range of outcomes for him. And that's, the fact that we're even having this discussion is very impressive and shows how much progress he made. Like, because obviously, like the year before, he had okay, like he was solid. He wasn't, he's someone I think we had in our top 20. But if you told me that
just outside, I think to start the year,
he was like 19th.
He was like 23rd. Well, he was higher coming out of camp than he was going into it. He was one of the guys we really liked in camp. Going into camp, I think he was in like the 20s, low 20s.
But anyway, so I just,
for what it's worth, he's only walked twice in 33 plate appearances.
Yeah,
in Puerto Rico this winter, and I think both of those were like his last 2 games.
Yeah, so it's just the interesting thing to me is, or the 2 questions for me are going to be like, yeah, what does he come into camp with like next year? Like, what does the approach look like, and then what is his timetable looking like? Because like that matters. Like, is he someone who could be up in middle of next year to help the team, maybe, or is he someone who it might take a little slower once he gets up to the high minors? Like, are we maybe looking at the middle of 2024? Like, that's a legitimate question. So, but yeah, even just him getting into the fact that he went from where you said to being, a borderline top 100 prospect or in the top 100 on some lists shows how much progress he made, and he's definitely a very exciting player who will be a lot of fun to watch this year.
Yeah. And I guess double A really is turning into that crucible for a lot of guys right now. I mean, if you look at the roster at the end of the year, this year, guys that really did kind of hit that reckoning there, you look at Nico Cavadas, who we'll talk more about next episode, but, Red Sox offensive player of the year, I think, hitter of the year, or whatever they called it, got to double A and really just had a much harder time. Alex Binelas.
What we expected to happen, yeah.
Alex Binelas is a great example. Nick Northcutt, who I think his double A number or his high A numbers, other than home runs, weren't even all that great, but got to double A and was just like not even an everyday guy.
Well, I think Binelas is a good example. Like, you look at in high A, he was
mightily.
245, 355, 495. In double A, in basically the same number of plate appearances, he was 166, 254, 379.
And was working on swing changes.
Yeah.
To adjust.
And the thing is, and you talked about it, that the jump from double A, the pitching is just so much better. Like, in the low minor, in high A, you still see those guys who, like, maybe they throw a fastball, they have no idea where it's going, it's straight as an arrow. You can murder, like, if you get 95 down the middle, you can hit it. But they can't spin a breaking ball, so you never have to worry about it. The flip side is, you get those guys who have like a good breaking ball, but they throw 88 to 90. Like, getting up to double A, the breaking balls are better, the fastballs are better, the command is better. It's just the gap is just very wide right now. And like a guy like Binelas, he gets up to double A and he just they craters, the hard hit, he still will hit the ball really hard when he made contact, but just, a good located fastball up in the zone is a lot harder to hit than, a 95 right down the middle, like things like that. Like it just became very difficult for him. And yeah, he's another one, frankly, who I'm very interested to see if he makes any substantial swing changes over the offseason. And similarly, like I do wonder if Cavadas is at some point going to have to reach that, but that's kind of a discussion more for the next one. But yeah, it's, I think overall, you would have to say that even if you're including like the guys who came up, it was probably a pretty disappointing year overall for the AA hitters. Like I would say the only guys who really like exceeded expectations would be Rafaela. Steven Scott, I thought was pretty good when he came up.
And he got forced up by Nathan Hickey coming up from Salem.
And he was terrible in Greenville.
Yeah.
Wasn't he hitting like under 200, I think?
He was not hitting well in Greenville. In Greenville, Steven Scott hit, if it will just load. In Greenville, he hit 188, 305, 336.
Yeah. So not
so
good.
He had an OPS of 641, but it was mostly in the fact that, he had 23 walks to 28 Ks in 37 games.
Yeah.
He played a lot more in Portland. Maybe that had something to do with it. He was DHing him more, I think, in Portland than he was in Greenville. Because the thing is, in Greenville, they had a lot more guys that needed playing time. I mean, especially once that entire crew of Meyer, Jordan, Hickey, Cavadas all came up from Salem. And then after the trade deadline, when you add Max Ferguson and Corey Rosier, I mean, that was a crowded roster at the end of the year. But I honestly think, Ian, that in a post short season A-ball minor league system, high-end college draft picks are not going to get challenged until AA. It's what we're going to see. I mean, you look at like Nathan Hickey is another guy that I think is not going to get challenged till he gets to AA. Even some high school guys, you talked about Blaze Jordan as a guy that's probably not going to get challenged until AA.
Yeah.
There are just a lot of guys who you're going to have to take their A-ball stats with an enormous grain of salt, because we need to see it against AA pitching. Because with fewer levels, some guys are going to move up quicker, hitters and pitchers, and AA is going to become really that proving ground. Whereas, low A has become something like short season was. High A has become something like low A was.
Yeah, because that's what it used to be, is that you'd have those pitchers would get weeded out in the Penn League,
and they're all going to low A now. And you look at some of the guys that used to get weeded out in low A, they're getting weeded out in high A now. So I think it's unique to hitters versus pitchers almost. It's and background is going to matter a lot more. High school guys. Well, even high-end high school guys, I'm not going to care about what they do in low A.
Well, and that's the flip side of it, is that there are high school hitters, or especially it's most of the high school and the Latin guys, who are going to have to be pushed too aggressively because there's no short season A-ball anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have guys who get up, and we'll probably discuss this when we get to like the A-ball discussion. But there were guys who probably shouldn't have started who would not have started in Salem if Lowell was still around. And or the flip side is there were guys though that I guess maybe they did get pushed a little more aggressively because of that, and they showed out, and that's why they established themselves on the prospect radar or pushed their way up the prospect radars, because even though they were super young for the level, like I'm thinking of Edinson Paulino, he still went up there and he performed, and like that's like, okay, that's impressive. Like you're 19 doing this after just one FCL season. That's very impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there are also guys, I mean, even in a small sample, and maybe we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but like what Mikey Romero did in a very short sample in Salem, the kid can hit. And I mean, you look at Baseball America's rankings just came out, and Alex Spear, who did those rankings, had Romero ahead of Nick York. I get it. We're not going to have that, but I get it. Like, we've got York ahead of him for reasons that I think I put more weight in, obviously because we feel that way, but I completely get putting Romero ahead of York.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is like with those draftees with no instructs, I kind of would rather start them a little lower without seeing them.
Mm-hmm.
Just because these guys are so far away, we're gonna have time to see them. But like, would it surprise me if by after we see them in spring training and then
get some data from scouts, who see them in the first month or two. If he's ahead of York, if he's a top 5 guy by, May 1st, no, like I could believe that.
Yep.
So, it's just, they will be a little lower for us, but I think it's more of a circumstance of just, didn't get to see them live is part of why we're going to start them a little lower.
Right. All right. Well, I think that'll wrap up the high minors hitters, Ian. We'll come back next week with an episode where we're going to hit, I don't know if we'll call it low minors hit, probably low minors hitters. I presume I think we could finish out the system. Because I mean, in the complex league, the story to the complex league is going to be that they had a ton of guys, but without as much data as we have on kind of the higher minor, the full season guys, I think there's not going to be quite as much to discuss. So we'll close out our season review next week. Next week we will have, will next week be rankings or the week after? I think the week after will be end of season rankings.
Yeah. It'll be the pre-winter meetings episode we'll have.
Pre-winter meetings
Because
episode.
the winter meetings start on
the 4th, I believe. 2nd? 4th. 2nd's a Friday.
It's in San Diego on the 4th.
San Diego.
So that is the 4th, which
I believe
is
it's German.
Yes, I get that reference. The 4th is a Sunday. So yeah. So that's right after our rankings come out because they will. We're
working on what the plan is.
Stay tuned for that. It should be fun.
Stay tuned.
But, I will say by the 2nd you will know them all. I think we can say that, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
fair.
yeah, but we'll have an episode. So yeah, next week will be we'll see TBD. We'll see what happens, but it'll definitely include the low minors hitters.
Yes. Correct. Okay, cool. Well, I think that's it. We already did our emails. So again, hit us up on email, podcast@soxprospects.com. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you downloading, streaming, whatever it is you do. We hope you all have a wonderful holiday, and you can kill time over this holiday by supporting the show by going on to patreon.com/soxprospects. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow the site and the site on both outlets. At Sox Prospects. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, although I have nothing on Instagram yet, at SP Chris Hatfield. The Instagram is honestly just a hedge in case Twitter implodes, but maybe we'll start putting stuff on there. Who knows? I've got some ideas that I may or may not have to put some content on the Insta. We'll see. I'll think about it. I'll let y'all know if I'm doing anything there. Ian is still just on Twitter at Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. And again, patreon.com/Sox Prospects. We want to shout out our $5 level Patreon supporters. That'd be Deb Kendall, Andrew Wallen, Nundle Martin, Ernest Shermer, Kyle C., Tyler Woodrow, Pat New Hampshire, Jeff Trainer, David R. Nardone, Tim Harding, Bill Stanton, Evan Kirkwood, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kenyon, Ben in Rhode Island, David B., Ben Burnett, Al Mendel, Kevin Catrides, Steve Gregory, James Bailey, Andreas Goldstrand, Corey Perrick, Forrest Perkins, Mark Herman, Brian Cowan, Andrew K., Jeff Harwood, Dusty G., Michael Murphy, Bob Introne, Pavel, Jordan Shabbat, Jeffrey Scruggs, Nicholas Staropoli, Mike Kawano, Chris Bollier, Curtis Walton, Michael Stewart, Caleb Farron, John Kane, Jason Stoneburner, Jason Parker, Mike Granger, Mike Mignosa, Jeff Richardson, Michael Cullen, John McGee, Nicholas Lenson, Paul Manish, James P. McMahon, Jim Tuttle, Adam Gregory, Brian Rose, Jake O'Donnell, John Mulqueen, Gerardo Ian Tosca, Sean Guinan, thank you for correcting me on your pronunciation, sir, and Kyle Sanborn. Thank you all for your support. We appreciate it. I think we will wrap it up there. We'll be back in your eardrums next week. Thanks for listening, everybody.